in 6 minutes starts now.
Fox News Radio. I'm Dave Anthony. President Trump reacts in 2 tweets to the report he shared sensitive classified info about ISIS with Russia. Fox's John Decker live at the White House.
President Trump pushing back on Twitter, writing, "As president, I wanted to share with Russia at an openly scheduled White House meeting, which I have the absolute right to do, facts pertaining to terrorism and airline flight safety." National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster dismissed the reporting as false.
2 other senior officials who were present, including the Secretary of State, remember the meeting the same way and have said so. Their on-the-record accounts should outweigh those of anonymous sources.
The information related to the use of laptops on aircraft reportedly came from a U.S. ally, which had not given permission for it to be shared with Russia. Dave?
Now, John, a Russian foreign ministry spokesman is also denying that the president gave them classified information. Democrats are upset. Senator Dick Durbin calls it dangerous and reckless. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi tells CNN.
These, shall we say, accidental, I don't know what word to describe for the president, in this messy approach to intelligence that is very endangering.
Some Republicans want answers to. Trouble that this involves Russia. The UN Security Council will meet today to discuss North Korea's latest weekend missile test, considering new sanctions. There's some finger-pointing at North Korea over that malware attack that held computers for ransom worldwide.
The malicious software appears to share code and infection patterns with tools used in the hack of Sony Pictures in 2014. That's according to antivirus companies Symantec and Kaspersky Lab. And a cybersecurity expert in South Korea is quoted saying last year he made contact with a hacker in North Korea who asked about extortion software. In Asia Bureau, Alistair Wanklin, Fox News.
A new federal study's out that shows a decline in bullying at schools over the last decade, but still, on average, 1 in 5 middle and high school students complained of being bullied in 2015, and rates are higher for LGBT students. Fox News Radio, fair and balanced.
ADT presents What to Consider When Considering Home Security. An ADT sign is more than a sign. It's a line in the sand. On one side, your family. On the other, an uncertain world.
For over 140 years, more people have chosen ADT to help prevent crime than anyone else. Get ADT starting at just $28.99 a month.
Tested, trusted, proven ADT.
With 36-month contract for licensing and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
It's time to gear up for summer fun. The Ready to Ride sales event is here. Looking to ride the waves? Check out our selection of Sea-Doo watercraft. Want to tear up the trails? Shop our selection of Can-Am ATVs and side-by-sides. Or rev up for open road adventures with the latest Spyder Roadsters. Stop in now and save up to $3,500 on your ultimate warm weather adventure machines. Visit East Coast Cycle Center in Bensalem. Offer ends soon. Restrictions may apply. See dealer for details.
Federal investigators are due at the scene of a fiery plane crash in North Jersey this morning to try and figure out what went wrong moments before a Learjet crashed into the warehouse complex in Carlstadt. Pilot and co-pilot were killed. Nobody on the ground was injured. President Trump revealed highly classified information to senior Russian officials during an Oval Office meeting last week, putting a source of intelligence on Islamic State at risk. That's in a report in the Washington Post this morning. White House officials are denouncing it. The New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice is renewing a plan to allow undocumented illegal immigrants to get a special type of driver's license. Program coordinator Joanna Calley says to qualify, an immigrant would need to present a valid passport.
There are plenty of consulates in the state who, for folks to be able to go get a passport, go get their own sort of documentation. You're not going to be just handing out licenses.
The group also wants to block local and state police from working with federal immigration officers. I'm Eric Scott, and this is the Town Square News Network.
At NJM, we believe extra is always better. Extra savings, extra benefits, extra peace of mind. You deserve more from your auto insurance company. NJM policyholders save up to 20% on average and enjoy extras like dividends, roadside assistance, and best-in-class customer service. Plus, you'll receive a new customer discount when you start your NJM. Now that's extraordinary value in auto insurance. Get your quote now at startyournjm.com.
Our weather forecast for today, almost perfect. I say almost because a weak little storm system may deliver some clouds and even a shower or sprinkle this afternoon. It's going to be warm regardless, though. Highs mostly in the upper 70s. It'll be cooler at the beaches. A few clouds tonight, lows around 60, and then the heat is on tomorrow. The humidity, too. We'll see more sun than clouds for your Wednesday with a stiff breeze. Inland high temperatures upper 80s to near 90 degrees. It's going to be hot and humid for Thursday, too. Turning mostly cloudy cloudy, but highs again near 90 degrees. I'm meteorologist Dan Zero.
From Harry Hurley Way in the world's playground to the broadcast pioneers of Philadelphia Hall of Fame.
I want to congratulate my friend, Harry Hurley.
You're about to find out why Harry Hurley has been named to the Talkers Magazine list of the 100 most important talk show hosts in the nation. Live from the studios of Town Square Media in Northfield, it's Hurley in the Morning on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
Thank you very much. 5 minutes past the hour. Chuck Malamut is here. This is our regular weekly program. Chuck is in his 26th year here as our official financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program. Of course, he has been doing what he's been doing beyond that number by a number of years. Chuck is the managing director, leads his team, the Malamut Group, at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office. And the number to reach Chuck and his team for all of your financial planning needs, that's for retirement planning, college building, vacation planning. I mean, any financial milestone that you're looking to plan for, the full financial services team of the Malamut Group is available at your service by dialing 609-383-2010. The following program is presented by Chuck, a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this program are those of Chuck. They do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast and are subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley, Smith Barney, member SIPC. Chuck, opening comments. How are you?
Good morning, Harry. Welcome back. I'm guessing you had a wonderful vacation with your family.
It was fantastic, Chuck. And I will tell you, though, you know, when you go away, and I was saying this to Kirk, and I know you can appreciate this with how hard you work. Even when you go away and you're having a good time, though, you're looking forward to getting back home. And in my case, and I know in your case, and Kirk and a lot of our good friends listening right now, you're looking forward to getting back to work as well. So it was great. The weather was off the charts. A little too hot 2 of the days, but I mean, not a drop of rain in a week. And it was great, Chuck, and I thank you for asking.
Well, Harry, the news flow did not take a break, certainly, when you were away on vacation.
Never does.
I did. But it seems as if when you go, I'm not sure why, but it just seems to be the news a little more fast and furious, I guess is the best way to call it.
When I go away, there's usually a terrorist attack, which happened twice when we were in Disney World. When I worked for you at the Golden Nugget, in fact, you had just left. I was in Disney World. What was that event called back in the 80s? Was it Black Friday or Black Monday? What was the day where it was the biggest drop? I was in Disney for that. I'm telling you, it's true. I'm like a news. I don't know if it's a news magnet or if actually I'm the opposite. If I repel, I go and everything blows up every single time. It's true. I even said before I left, now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what it will be, but I'm leaving now for a week, so something extraordinarily big is going to happen. It's one of the last things I said a week ago, and boom, Comey is fired. Also, Chuck, upon my return, though, the markets have all hit yet new highs once again.
Well, you know, Harry, it's very interesting to see the clear, stark differential between what the media is reporting and what the markets are doing, particularly the equity markets. I mean, when you think about it, prior to last week, the stock market, generally speaking, was up for 3 weeks in a row. Now, not great gains, but, sort of just moving forward, building, as the market has a tendency to sometimes consolidate and rebuild off of, when the market kind of, moves lower and then moves higher, you have those what I'll call consolidation days. And what happened last week, well, the S&P was down about 0.3%. So going into yesterday, the S&P was up 7.6%. The Dow's up 6.7%, and the Nasdaq, the clear winner, up over 14%. But it's very, very evident if your listeners haven't figured it out yet, Harry, the market has completely, for the most part, I'm going to say, disconnected itself from the news flow. The
Yes.
market is more concerned with earnings.
What do you think, Chuck? What do you attribute it to? Is it the insatiable appetite and the loss in credibility of the media? Because normally, for most of our lifetime, Chuck, if the media was going apoplectic about any one issue and it would hit market saturation level, pitch fever heights, you would see markets be affected by geopolitical events, by a natural disaster, by anything. The markets, I want to give the markets credit, the financial markets, and I believe a lot of this happened during the previous 8 years where they just decided, you know what, we're just out of the political insanity business and we're in our own lane. And the markets no longer seem driven by the events that used to always drive them.
Well, Harry, the market for now is trading more on earnings and revenue. Earnings were up 10% year over year. Revenue, I believe, was up 15% year over year. So what we're seeing at this point in time is that the equity markets are again continuing to shake off everything that's coming out of from the media and focusing on what really makes the market, and that's earnings. So don't be at all surprised. I mean, we put in new highs yesterday. We will, I think, continue the futures today. Again, we don't ever want to talk what happens on a day-to-day basis, but we're up pre-market. So my guess is that we're going to continue to move onward and upward, as long as earnings are there.
I love the approach, and I think it's the way it always should have been, but it never was. I mean, in days gone by, if we had Syria incinerating their own people in crematories, if we had North Korea lighting off, bombs and missiles and doing nuke tests and all crazy stuff, if we had all these different things that were happening, Russia, from a myriad of angles, Russia is all over the place. If we had all these things happening, the markets would not have ignored that in the past.
Harry, I agree with you. I mean, the markets over the last several years have certainly matured, and do not hyperventilate over these events. I mean, you think about the amount of terrorism, unfortunately, that's out there today compared to where we were a decade ago. And, this past weekend, it was a major hack.
Yeah.
It affected how many hundreds of thousands of computers and hospitals and businesses, and the market took it in stride, Harry. I mean, at the end of the day, yesterday was a really good day for the equity markets, and today it looks as if we're going to continue to, with that upward bias.
Kirk was saying, and he's still nearby the studio, Kirk was saying confidence. There's a confidence, I believe, that is right now, I don't want to call it unshakable, but I believe there's a confidence that just completely obliterates any of the geopolitical things that would normally have an effect, and the markets just appear to be impervious unless there's just the new normal. Chuck, as you've talked about in the past, is there a new normal that the news cycles are so crazy anymore that it's not even really news anymore? It's just people blabbing. It's just like static noise. It's like the parents in the Peanuts comic strips and the Peanuts movies. They never get seen, and you just hear wah 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 anytime they come walking by. I think it's a little bit of that.
I think that the general public has become, I don't want to use the word exhausted because that's really not the case, but they're at the point where they just sort of move onward on a day-to-day basis, and their day is not consumed like it was months ago with what is happening, with the media. Will in fact our president and Congress and the Senate be able to get things accomplished over the next, 3+ years? I mean, that's anybody's guess. But if you take a look at where we are right now, on a comparison basis, earnings and revenues are significantly better than they have been for the last several years. It's been many, many years.
Chuck, let's get our first break in. You can continue that thought right after the break. We're just going to step away for a couple of minutes, 2.5 to be exact. You're listening to Chuck Malamut. For all of your financial planning needs, turn to Chuck and his group, the Malamut Group, at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office, 609-383-2010 to schedule an appointment. That's 609-383-2010. Chuck will continue his market update. He's going to talk about consumer spending, jobs growth, the U.S. deficit, positives and negatives of the equity market, and anything else that Chuck would like to present this morning on his regular weekly program, all about your financial matters. I'm Hurley in the Morning, and we'll be right back in just a few.
Each and every weekday, WPG Talk Radio 104.1 is giving you not one, but two chances to win $1,000.
Money!
Win cash with Harry Hurley's 2K a day giveaway.
I want to make bank, bro.
When Harry announces the winning keyword, go to WPGTalkRadio.com, enter the code, and you could win $1,000. Powered by Dr. Lyle M. Back. Visit ILoveLyleBack.com. WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
Paul D'Amato.
Harry Hurley.
Paul, I know our listeners want to know what's new with the D'Amato Law Firm.
Things are great, Harry. We are so privileged to represent our clients whose lives have been turned upside down because they were involved in a serious accident. We meet on a regular basis. We copy our clients on all our correspondence so they always know what's going on with their case. We try to treat them like family. We have Alexa here, my daughter. I'm so happy that she's here. We have Steve Van Natten and Casey Gifford. We're a great legal team.
They're the D'Amato Law Firm for all of your personal injury legal needs. Turn to the official lead counsel to the Hurley in the Morning program for more than a quarter of a century. The D'Amato Law Firm in Egg Harbor Township, 609-926-3300. That's 609-926-3300. Tell Paul, Alexa, Sandy, the entire team that Hurley in the Morning sent you.
Hi, this is Ron Rossi, and have you heard about the new lower price on the 2017 Honda Accord LX 4-door? Now at Rossi Honda, you can get a Honda Accord for only $99 a month. And if you're buying, 0% APR is available. And don't forget, up to 5 years and 60,000 miles of free oil changes are included. At Rossi Honda, we treat you better, period, for less, on Delsey Drive in Vineland.
$29.95 down, tax tags, doc fees extra, 36-month lease, 12,000 miles per year to qualified buyers. See dealer for details.
Hi, I'm Ron Rossi, and during our May sale, you can lease a 2017 Honda HR-V LX 4-door for only $149 per month, or a 2017 Honda Fit 4-door for only $125 per month. Included up to 5 years and 60,000 miles of free oil changes on all new 2017 Hondas. At Rossi Honda, we treat you better, period, for less, on Delsey Drive in Vineland.
$29.95 down, tax tags, doc fees extra, 36-month lease, 12,000 miles per year to qualified buyers. See dealer for details.
Hi, it's Mark Levin. Join me at 6 this evening. Now back to the Mayor of the Morning, Harry Hurley, on WPG Talk Radio 104.1, South Jersey's talk station.
18 minutes past the hour. I am Hurley in the Morning. He is Chuck Malamut. And a reminder for all of your financial planning needs, don't do as I say, do as I do. Turn to the official financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program, the Hurley in the Morning charity, Chuck Malamut and the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office, 609-383-2010. Chuck, you were saying.
So Harry, I think in spite of all the news flow, like I said, the markets have moved in an upward direction, and there's several reasons other than earnings. Let's take a look for a minute at consumer spending. It's just been remarkable. Retailing as we know it. And we won't get into any names because we're not allowed to mention names, as you know. But, the traditional bricks and mortar, a lot of earnings came out last week, and they weren't particularly good. Same-store sales off 5%, off 8%. And then lo and behold, what is happening, you're starting to see this shift of spending. I mean, we've always had, the online phenomena, and that just continues to get stronger and deeper. And you look at companies that have put their footprint there and basically are doing more than they've done previously. But what is happening is that the consumers are moving away from these brick and mortars. And we talked about the economy before we went to the break. the fact of the matter is, you look at existing home sales and new home sales. There's been a lot of that money has been shifting to these other venues, and you just spent a fair amount of time away.
Yeah.
Travel, restaurants,
Yep.
Entertainment, other experiences. I would venture to say that you went sort of off season, but chances are there were still some pretty incredible lines. And if you didn't make your dinner reservation at the restaurant you wanted to go to, you're basically shut out.
You're right. Chuck, you're absolutely right. So you can see, it's not anecdotal. There is evidence that the economy is really improving. Let me give you another example. Years ago, when the real estate market was, let's just call it what it was collapsing. You talked about the whole picture being the stool and one of the rungs of the stool being real estate. I understand as recently as 3 o'clock this morning, I read about 1,000 words on this, that real estate right now is almost in terms of sales, is almost at the level it was during the boom time. That's been sort of quiet.
Absolutely, Harry. I mean, you've seen, and again, I seem like I'm being rather repetitive when I make these statements, but if we're obviously not in a great part of the country right now with respect to real estate, but when you go to other areas, Florida, California, Nevada, Arizona, it's these homes go up, and there's basically, you end up in these bidding wars. I mean, you can't live in San Francisco right now. It is just so terribly expensive. So what is happening, that a lot of the money, the consumers, they're taking their spending and they're moving it elsewhere. So, the question is, do your bricks and mortar stores, and we know who, look, you go to a large mall, you see, a very, very large anchor store. There's 3 or 4 names that basically are the anchor stores, so to speak. And the question is, when you look at those prices of the respective equities, the stocks to trade, for those companies, either at 52-week lows. One company in particular, Harry, is 6-year low they hit last week.
Yep.
So now the question is, can they in fact reinvent themselves, or and then move forward? But there are, like I said, parts of this economy, because job growth continues. The pace is a little bit slower, Harry, than what we've seen in most recently. We've talked about the labor market, and we've talked about rising wages, and we've talked about the possibility, if wages continue to increase, that will in fact have an impact on inflation. Inflation has not reared its ugly head for many, many years. But I think, Harry, and it's kind of funny, we always talk about inflation is X, any of a number of factors, which really are part of inflation. But the fact is, I think inflation is here, and investors need to begin to look at potentially protecting their portfolio, even if it's just a small amount, Harry, in an effort to avoid a potential, rising inflation over the next, 3 to 5 to 7 years.
Very impressive narrative, Chuck, and I'm a buyer of all of it. It's happening. But I also don't think it's an accident that the financial markets are doing so well as real estate continues to recover.
Well, yeah, but let's talk about unemployment for a second, because I mean, I know you kind of kid around about what is the unemployment number, what is the real number, but the last number that was reported, we were at a 10-year low at 4.4%. So, when you push the number, Harry, I don't know how much lower you can push that number, but
the model was set that you couldn't go lower than 6.
So, what happens is that's going to push. That's going to push wages. It doesn't take much to figure that out.
And when the supply and demand switches, then you're going to see employees that will be getting salary increases. There'll be gainful employment, so then there's more discretionary spending. So this is just they're all pieces to a very important puzzle that right now it's all telling a great story. Then you look at some of the things that you usually don't see happening all at the same time. Low interest rates while there's a strong real estate market. Low gas prices. I left a week ago, Chuck. The price of a gallon of gasoline is 10 cents lower than it was before I left.
Well, yeah, interesting enough, Harry, for a fair amount of time, oil, continued to move in it. Well, I don't know if you want to call it the right direction or the wrong direction, but the price of West Texas crude, so to speak, was at $47.83 as of last Friday. This is just remarkable, Harry. A year ago, we were within $1, $46.65, and then as we got to the end of this past year, we were pushing $54. So you can think it's sort of that rubber, sort of that elastic rubber band that goes, expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction.
Chuck, does any of this have to do also with the fact that the new president has created the ability for both pipelines to be completed? North Dakota is booming again right now. I've been reading a lot about what's happening in North Dakota. They had a really big boom time, and I believe the bad policies of the past 8 years hurt them. Now that the oil is flowing through the Dakota pipeline, and it will one day flow through the Keystone XL pipeline. Is this part of America being more energy independent, energy self-sufficient, and that the price of gasoline from external forces is going to be more competitive because we are more self-sufficient? Is that reasonable?
Well, I think it is, Harry, but you have to look at overall supply. I mean, and up until just most recently, you've had an increase in inventory. Now, I think what we're starting to see now, as of last week, you're starting to see some draws against that inventory. So ultimately, you could end up with somewhat of an oil supply deficit. And if that, it doesn't take much to figure out if that in fact happens, what's going to happen with the price of oil. But I do agree with you that
if we're getting to the point where we can achieve half of our daily consumption through domestic means, that I believe is a really positive event.
Well, it is, Harry, but look, I think it all gets back to supply and demand. So when you think about it, the demand growth will return. It's pretty evident, and as a result of that, it's going to come as no surprise with the price of the pump that you're seeing today. It has to move. It has to move higher. So. Think about it. The price of gas was at actually $2.31 at the end of December. Now, this is national average. Harry, has nothing to do with New Jersey is part of it because obviously we had that phenomena, which I'll describe because you and I will go back and forth about that gas tax, but. Gasoline recently, Harry, was $2.37 nationally. So it was up. Think about this a second. It was up 6 cents from the end of December, but the price of crude was down about 13% from the end of December. So I think you're going to see again some catch up, at the pump. Don't be at all surprised.
I want to commend Chuck Malamut because he really subscribes to the Hurley in the Morning theory of you're always Hurley and never late. There is literally road construction almost everywhere that Chuck would be driving to get here. I know Kirk is going through it now. You have road construction on Shore Road. That's by the Stillwater building. You have Fire Road closed between Washington Avenue and Tilton Road. So you have all three north-south roads having major construction at the same time. I'm not going to criticize it. It sounds a little crazy, but you do need to get it done when you can get it done. And Memorial Day weekend is around the corner, just a few weeks away.
Hey, but Harry, I agree. You need to get it done, but you don't need to get it all done at the same time.
I agree.
I mean, no matter. I mean, it was gridlock this morning.
I know. So I want to commend you. You were still Hurley. You were not late. Most people would have left with only enough time that when everything goes the way it usually goes, that you'd be okay. I always leave Hurley because I treat that I could get a flat, that I could hit traffic, I could hit a detour. Chuck hit all those things today. Kirk's hitting them all right now. So be guided accordingly. Those are some of the areas where Linda Gilmore, Atlantic County Government, they've been communicating with me very, very well so that I can let you know that these construction projects are happening. As Chuck Malamut would have said in the early 1980s, the inconvenience is temporary, the improvement is permanent.
What is dangerous driving? It's aggressive driving, intoxicated driving, reckless driving, and texting while driving. These drivers put everyone in danger. If you see someone driving dangerously in New Jersey, you can do something about it. Call pound 77 on your cell to report it. That's pound 77. Let them know we're all watching. This message brought to you by the New Jersey Division of Highway Traffic Safety, New Jersey State Police, New Jersey Broadcasters Association, and this station.
Investments in securities involves the risk of loss. The following is a far too common tale of investing in annuities. A successful couple invested a large portion of their savings in annuities, thinking they were a safe way to guarantee a dependable income stream no matter what the market did. But it didn't take long for them to regret their decision. They were locked into low returns, faced potential tax consequences, and that they couldn't get out of their annuities without paying huge penalties. They were stuck, and so was their money. Suddenly, their retirement hopes and dreams were in danger. But it didn't have to happen to them, and it doesn't have to happen to you. You can avoid the annuity trap. Here's one way. Get the free report, Annuity Insights, your guide to better understanding annuities, by calling 1-800-379-4442. Written by Forbes columnist and money manager Ken Fisher's firm. This powerful report could help save you from major financial heartache, and it's offered today for free. If you have an annuity or are considering one, claim your free annuities guide today. Hurry, free copies are limited. Call now. 1-800-379-4442. 1-800-379-4442.
The sun is out and the wait is over. Hot summer fun is coming to Resorts Casino Hotel. Friday, May 26th at 5 p.m. Join us as we kick off the summer by dropping 5,000 beach balls on the boardwalk. Then cool off with some frozen drinks at Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville or grab a bite on the beach at Landshark Bar and Grill. And wrap up the weekend with the BMW X1 sweepstakes. Fill your summer with exciting events, entertainment, and daily specials during hot summer fun at Resorts. Visit resortsac.com/HSF for more info. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hurley, Beck, Hannity, and me, Mark Levin, weeknights at 6 on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
Thank you very much. Welcome back. Chuck Malamut. For all of your financial planning needs, turn to the Malamut Group, Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office, 609-383-2010. If you've heard me mention Chuck, please tell him that when you give a call over to the team, 609-383-2010. Where are we going from here, Chuck?
So, Harry, let's chat a minute about the deficit. Unfortunately, as we look at it, it continues to increase, and it's unfortunately it's on that trajectory, which is not a great one. It's moving fairly quickly, fairly sharply higher, and if you think about it, we got healthcare reform, and we're talking about tax reform. So a rising deficit, Harry, over the next 10 years, the federal budget deficit is projected to increase from $559 billion to $1.4 trillion. Now that's that's an increase from 2.9% of GDP to 5% of GDP.
I don't expect you to have the perfect answer, and it's really not even a fair question, but why would this be increased by 200%?
Well, the numbers are...
Sorry, Chuck. Do
No,
you need to get it?
No, we're good,
Okay.
Harry. So what is happening, Harry, is that the numbers are going to obviously increase with the ongoing increases in fiscal spending. I mean, that I think is very, very obvious. Now, these increasing deficits will probably complicate everything that is now trying to be laid out in Washington with respect to, Trump looking to reduce taxes and increase infrastructure and defense. It's sort of like, how you have that rubber band,
Yep.
and you just pull it and pull it and pull it, and ultimately what happens to the rubber band?
It breaks.
Yeah. So forgetting everything that you're hearing day in and day out with respect to what's coming out of Washington, leaking information to to Russia or whatever it may be. I mean, it just goes on and on. But the fact of the matter is that this is real. You have a deficit. If the deficit does in fact increase the way it's projecting to go, then ultimately, can you imagine 5% of GDP?
It's incredible. Let me throw out a few statistics. These are empirical in nature. They have occurred. They have occurred in the past couple of months. Unemployment, 4.4%. That's the lowest since 2007. Chuck covered that. You have reinvestment. SoftBank, $50 billion. Exxon, $20 billion. Hyundai, $3.1 billion. Apple, $1 billion. Chrysler, $1 billion. GM, $1 billion. Bayer AG, $1 billion. Toyota, nearly $1 billion. LG, like $500 million. Budget surplus, $182 billion, April 2017. Haven't seen anything like that. Stock market, the Dow is almost at 21,000 as we literally speak. Consumer confidence at 125.6. I mean, that's just some of the fast cliff notes, Chuck, that I jotted down. So something very positive. It's not a story that's being told by many, but some really positive things have been happening.
What is it? The Rodney Dangerfield rally just continues onward and upward, and so a lot of investors are saying, "Okay, I missed this, and I'm going to wait for the next pullback, and then I'm going to get in." Look, Harry, you can't go. You just can't move up every day. We know that, but I think. The Morgan Stanley analyst has just made some incredible predictions where he believes the market is going to be at the end of this year and over the next 3 years. And if he's right in those predictions, then it causes, again, that cause and effect where you might need to, if you're not in equities, you need to be in equities. And if you're in equities, maybe you need to look at your allocation. But unfortunately, what has happened is that investors, because of, historical standards, with the fact, 08, 07, 08, everybody very, very concerned about, making large commitments at the levels that we are right now.
Chuck, shouldn't this at some point, I would think in the not-too-distant future, also result in some pretty impressive GDP?
It should. But Harry, I mean, it's you think about what we just kind of talked about. I mean, GDP south of, certainly well south of 3. The question is, I mean, look, one of the goals was to get over 3, but, it's kind of trying to turn the Titanic on a dime. You think about it, it doesn't happen very, very quickly.
Kirk had a comment right before you began your program. It was during the break, and it was, is the market building a base at this level?
We think it is.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
So I mean, there's so Harry, you think about it. Obviously, you have positive and negative impacts with respect to the equity markets, and you're starting to see, rates move ever so slightly higher, at least on the short end. I mean, your 10-year intermediate terms and beyond, those rates have actually decreased. I mean, there was a large auction, I believe it was last week, on the 10 and the 30-year, the monthly auction, and the 10 years, 230, 240, somewhere in that range right now. It's where seems to be trading, and everyone's projections were that it'd be over 3, and that hasn't happened. So let's sort of weigh, positives and negatives here. So we've talked about first quarter earnings. 85% of earnings are in, and as I mentioned to you before, for the most part, revenue and earnings are beating expectations pretty significantly year-over-year comparatives. Now, the growth momentum, where you get to the point, like, how much more can you grow? So that's sort of the cause and effect. Globally speaking, I mean, you're continuing to see money flows out of U.S., into overseas international markets. The MSCI EFA that we measure, which is, the Far East and Europe. So that looks to be pretty solid, But because what is happening here, what I mentioned to you before, our economy, because of the high deficits that are out there and continue to grow, and other structural headwinds, there's a possibility that we could, stall here just a little bit. If you look at monetary policy here, Harry, in the U.S., it's pretty supportive on a day in and day out basis. Now, having said that, how much room does Washington have to change those policies? I mean, we think it's pretty limited. I mean, if you look at the way government operates now, I mean, what have we gotten accomplished since the beginning of January? I don't want to sound terribly negative, but I don't think a whole lot has been accomplished.
Well, here's the thing. I would push back on that. I think we have accomplished a lot since January, but the media is very focused on Russia and whatever sensational thing that they want to talk about. We have a new Supreme Court justice who's a young man that could be on the court for 30 or 40 years. TPP was killed. Border security was increased. 32 bills have actually passed through Congress and been signed by the president. The president relaxed a lot of regulations that were choking business. The president opened up the Keystone XL pipeline and the Dakota pipeline. I mean, in fairness, Chuck.
All right, I'll agree with you. I'm going to agree.
But the problem is the perception.
Yeah, the perception
is
what
you said,
and
what I'm saying requires explanation. So, a good friend of mine told me a long time ago, when you're explaining, you're losing. I agree with the perception, but the reality is a much better story. We don't have good enough storytellers.
Yeah, I think the problem is if you take monetary policy, accommodative and supportive. But how much more can we go, I guess, is the thought I was throwing out there.
That's a great point.
Okay.
So when you look at it, you're looking at it almost narrowly through that type of prism, and then I would agree. But I think, in fairness, also to the topic, I think we've been helped, even though I don't agree with her on everything she's doing. I think the Fed has been extremely transparent in their intentions, so there's been no surprises.
Yeah, and speaking of the Fed, so they continue buying. They continue selling off their what's on their balance sheet, their assets as we know it. So that is positive to the markets, but what could be disruptive is the fact that this ongoing Fed tightening.
Is there, by the way, for those that don't know, because you have Series 7, Series 63, you have all these degrees and licenses that none of us have. When the Fed is selling, is that consistent with the public buying? Do they always seem to go that way?
And actually, I'm going to take 30 seconds back. Actually, the Fed is buying.
Okay.
At this point in time, and at the same time, what they're doing is they're moving rates on the short end of the curve higher. So the increase of rates could be obviously a concern with respect to the markets. Now, we talked about equities. We talked about valuations of the equity markets. They seem to be somewhat, stretched. Maybe somewhat stretched, but full at this point in time. And here's what's happening. If you look at the VIX, Harry, the volatility index, I'm trading like in that 10 level. We haven't seen levels this low basically in a long, long time. And the concern that we should have is that investors are growing more complacent. And what happens when you become complacent? What happens when you're off of your A game?
You don't perform as well.
Yeah, so
you have your B game.
So I think that that's something that we need to think about. We look at our politically speaking, what is happening here versus abroad. I mean, obviously, believe it or not, we don't have the same political problems that we're experiencing, particularly in Europe.
Yeah.
And the French election, went the right way, and the markets rallied as a result of that. We talked about this the last point. We talked about this before as we got started this morning.
By the way, I would only add, because I can't resist.
I know.
The French election went the PC way. It went the politically correct way. not necessarily the right way. It went the way that markets would respond favorably.
It didn't go the PK way.
It didn't go it didn't go the Brexit way.
All right.
No, remember, Pocket Kreskin only predicted the two. Pocket Kreskin did not predict that she was going to beat Macron in the final election. I just knew that she would be in the final two. But it went the politically correct way, so obviously the markets were like, yay, we're happy, we're so happy because it went politically correct. That's one thing I think markets do enjoy. They do enjoy political correctness.
Well, the markets don't like to get spooked.
Yeah, they like stability. They like the perceived stability because it's more perceived than real.
Think about it. Like if you're buying an equity, if a company comes in and they meet or beat expectations, and that's obviously good news for the stock price. If they miss and they miss big, you know what the outcome is going to be. So, and the last point is, Harry, we talked about political risk. We talked about them, here in the U.S. And yes, I agree with you that the political risks for the most part have receded. Believe it or not, in spite of everything that you're seeing.
I do believe that.
But the risks that are potentially out there, not only here in the U.S. but more globally speaking, that they can move at any point in time, and if they do move if geopolitical risks spike, then that's going to be obviously somewhat negative to the market. But having said all that, I think at the end of the day, Harry, I think there's still room, in the equity markets for sure. But those huge gains that we were seeing right at the election and after the election, while they're nice to have, I don't really think you really want to have them. I would be more comfortable with two steps forward, one step back,
more sustained type long.
Because that really builds your base in the equity markets.
Meteoric
exactly.
type of deal that could be like, flash in the pan, burn out like a Roman candle, bright for, 12 puffs, and then it's out. But I do hear you on that. You covered spending, consumer spending, about 30 minutes ago. It was like the second item that you covered. Everything that's happening right now, I believe, bodes well that people will have more money to spend, and then what that means to the economy.
Harry, I agree with you. If unemployment is at 4.4, and you're getting that push, you're getting that push with wages. Think about where we were just several years ago, where you did everything you could just to get a job, and you would have virtually no negotiating skills when it came to your wage. You're starting to see it a little bit, attract a little bit differently.
Because supply and demand at times, it's never perfect where it's even between the employer and the employee. Sometimes the employer has a slight edge or a big-time edge. Sometimes the employee has the edge.
Exactly.
And then you see things like nurses being hired with signing bonuses. We've seen it all during the Great Recession, Chuck. Nurses went from knowing when they were in school getting their BSN that they would have multiple job offers to choose from, and they would select the one that might have the longest contract, the biggest signing bonus, and other benefits, fringe benefits and otherwise. Then it turned into you were lucky if you could even get a job.
Yeah.
And there was no signing bonus.
Think about college graduates today.
Yeah.
It was not too long ago when you graduating, you would be no jobs.
Chuck, you graduated, and it wasn't that long ago, with a wonderful degree from the Cornell Hotel School of Management. The world was your oyster. You could choose Atlantic City. You could choose Las Vegas. You did both, actually. Vegas first and Atlantic City. You could have gone anywhere. Didn't you have multiple opportunities?
I did, Harry, and this was many years ago. Elected it'd be best to come back home and work with my family at the time. But think about if you are in, you're in college and you're taking something that is geared to technology, coding, for instance. There are so many opportunities out there, because that's the direction that the world is going right now.
These technology jobs, it's going to be incredible.
If you are in the business school and you have that acumen and you can articulate your message, then ultimately I think that bodes well. But there are certain things that, our psychologies, want us to do certain things in life, but ultimately, you major in something that, looks good, feels good, but ultimately may not create some sort of an income stream for you. But I think you're starting to see a lot of college graduates, be afforded some pretty good opportunities compared to we were less than a decade ago.
But we are going to continue to see, don't you kind of feel this? This is not officially part of the Malamut program. I'm just going to throw it to you as a wild card. Don't you sense, though, there are a number of industries that are going to cease to exist or be very downsized?
Well, Harry, I think you see that all the time. I don't think it's
not
doesn't come in as any revelation.
Like the Industrial Revolution did a lot of things. It's not new in our history, but it is extremely shocking to society where positions that had existed for, like we talked about it in advance, toll collection jobs would ultimately not exist, and they barely do anymore. It's all automated. There are still some, but not many. That's going to be a job that's going to be absolutely gone at some point, and there'll be a number of other jobs like that.
Well, Harry, look at your industry. I look at the industry that I'm in. I mean, there's two industries that we both have a lot of experience and time spent, and look at what has happened with those particular industries and creation of or destruction of jobs. I mean, it's, so I think what's very, very important is that you have to, no matter what you're doing, and we are completely off base here. It has nothing to do
That's
with,
why I said it's not the Malamut program
with
at this point.
what we talk about. I mean, you have to be able to adapt. And if you can't or you're not willing, I think most people can, but there's just a lot of people that aren't willing to adapt.
We got to figure our business went from people in, like, one of Chris Coleman's jobs would be cutting tape with a razor and taping it back
and
together.
Splicing it, right.
And splicing and making edits. Now it is digital, and the technology is amazing. We had bulky carts that used to be put in that would ultimately wear out, that you would have to wait to rewind before you could play them. Now I could play, John O'Hurley.
This is John O'Hurley, and you're listening.
And I could just.
This is John.
I could just keep doing it as many times as I want to do it.
This is John O'Hurley, and you're listening to O'Hurley in the morning.
In the old days, that would play. It'd have to rewind. It would be a while before you could play it again. The technology is amazing, but at one hand, it's our best friend, and at the other, it is the great downsizer of jobs.
Harry, you look at our industry, same thing happens. I mean, there is perfect case in point, a client contact system. I mean, when we started years ago, there was no such thing as a client contact system. You would keep track of your prospective clients on an index card and put it back in the file box.
All manual.
And now, I mean, that client contact system helps us immeasurably in what we do, because what it does with our team, the Malamut Group, is that if I talk to you, Harry Hurley, as a client, and we have a certain discussion, and we come to an agreement that there's certain things that we want to do in your account or whatever, or your financial plan, we log a couple notes. It's in there, so this way, when Mike, Nancy, or Kristen, they can look at that record and say, okay, I see that Chuck talked to you about whatever, and here's what we need to do, to help facilitate.
Yeah, no surprises.
It's amazing, and not only that, when you travel, you have the opportunity to access that information from virtually anywhere. So, to me, I look at it as being quite productive. Things that used to take an hour.
You can do video calls, conferencing.
Things that would take an hour, previously you can now accomplish in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So you should become more productive. Should.
More efficient, more productive. Chuck, this is great stuff. Always a pleasure, my man.
Harry, thanks for having me. We'll see you next week.
Look forward to it. For all of your financial planning needs, turn to Chuck Malamut, the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office, 609-383-2010. We'll set the stage for the fourth quarter, which will be, and we've already been in contact with each other, Dr. Newkirk for half, and hopefully we've reached out and we're hopefully going to hear from Councilman Tibbet in the final 20 minutes of the program about the state's decision to privatize trash collection in Atlantic City. Chuck, it's not the Malamut show now. What do you think of that? That's a multi-year, 3-year contract, a multi-million-dollar contract, but it is due, if you believe the numbers, it's due to save like $1.1 million a year, and yet everybody's trash will still be picked up. What do you think?
I'm going to actually not comment on it, Harry, because I'm really not up to speed on it.
Okay. But you are aware it happened.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And it's interesting to note, I want to point out, and if we get Tibbet, we'll get into more of into the weeds with this, that employees are not going to be sacrificed either. It's the kind of deal that when I was an executive, if we were going to privatize something, I always wanted to look out for what I would refer to as my people. I didn't want them getting hurt. And you can structure deals where the employees shift to the contractor. In other words, they keep their job. The city and the taxpayers get the savings. I would have liked the city to have done it as opposed to state dictate. But if you're going to save, 7 figures per year, if those numbers are credible, it's something you have to look at.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, brought to you by Atlantic Care. Healthcare you can believe in.
Would you be able to recognize the symptoms of a stroke? May is National Stroke Awareness Month, and knowing how to be fast can save someone's life. Be Fast is an acronym we all should know that stands for balance, eyes, face, arm, speech, and time. Check to see if there is a sudden loss of balance. Ask the person about their eyes. Do they have blurred or double vision? Look at the person's face and have them smile to see if their smile is uneven. Ask them to raise both arms and see if one arm is weak or numb. When they speak, listen for signs of slurring. And finally, time is critical for someone suffering from a stroke, so get medical care as soon as possible. By knowing how to recognize the signs of a stroke, we are able to be fast and help save a life. I'm Robin Stoloff for Health Update.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, brought to you by Atlantic Care. Healthcare you can believe in.
This is Harry Hurley, and I'm with the Mayor, Charles Kane, owner and operator of the Auto Plaza, Egg Harbor Township. Mayor, tell your listeners who are looking for a car, why should they choose the Auto Plaza?
Harry, it's our full-service department, selection, and hassle-free financing alternatives that have set us apart for over 17 years. Over the years, we've been the recipient of many sales and service awards, as well as receiving an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. It's been a real honor for us. We are now serving a second generation of sales and service customers. Stop in today. You're going to love our staff and experience what makes us different.
For all of your automobile service, parts, and sales needs, call the Auto Plaza at 609-646-2447. That's 609-646-2447. And visit us on the World Wide Web at myautoplaza.com.
The Auto Plaza at English Creek. Roll with Mr. Tire. Napa know-how.
That's not heavy metal music. Or the sound of a stray cat fight. It's your car's not-so-subtle way of saying, head to Napa for new brake pads and rotors and get up to a $50 rebate by mail. So don't confuse for anything other than new brakes and $50 back by mail. That's Napa Know-How.
Napa know-how.
At participating Napa Auto Parts stores. Offer expires 5/31/17.
The Sea-Doo Ready to Ride sales event is here. Shop now and get a Sea-Doo at a great price. As America's #1 selling watercraft, Sea-Doo delivers on-water suspension for a safe and exhilarating ride. Right now, save up to $500 on select 2016 models. Rip up the waves this summer at an affordable price. Get ready to ride at your local Sea-Doo dealer. Visit Hamilton Yamaha in Trenton. Offer ends soon. Restrictions may apply. See dealer for details.
Spring is here, and Seagear Marine Supply and Seagear Outfitters in Cape May have everything you need to enjoy life outdoors and on the water. Seagear Marine Supply is stocked with all new quality outdoor clothes, accessories, and sunglasses. For recreational boaters and sportsmen, Seagear Outfitters has all the hot new apparel brands. The best.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chuck Malamut is still here. We're going to feather very, very seamlessly right into the fourth quarter. Dr. Newkirk is arriving momentarily, And then hopefully, and even if it's not with Councilman Tibbet, we're going to have a discussion about this move that Senator Chiesa made, because unless somebody tells me something differently, I know this to be true. Atlantic City had it on a council meeting agenda, and they pulled it. When they didn't take action, Chiesa did. I don't know how, even if you don't like who he picked, I don't know how you fault that. He gave you a chance.
104.1 WPGG Atlantic City, WSJO 104.9 HD2 Egg Harbor City. Everything you need to know in 6 minutes starts now.
Fox News Radio. I'm Dave Anthony. Find the leakers. That's what President Trump tweets, reiterating he's been urging the FBI and others to find leakers in the intelligence community since he took office. This as National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster denies Washington Post and other reports that the president shared sensitive classified info with Russia last week.
I was in the room. It didn't happen.
The president's also tweeted about that. Fox's John Decker live at the White House.
The president pushing back on Twitter.